All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to open up by giving all the praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and preach the truth and sincerity. Shalom to the hopefully elect. And this is the brother Amawan Ayash from the GMS Indianapolis camp coming back at you with another quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And in today's lesson, I have an article from today.com dealing, with this new CV strain that's in the air. As you can see, the headline reads XFG Stratus CV variant now dominant in U.S. as cases surge. Know these symptoms. You see, and ultimately we understand not that long ago, about almost 5 years back, which the original CV demic started like late 2019, early 2020. So it's probably been about 4.5 years since this thing took place, and we understand that ultimately America has not really been relieved of this said pestilence, because one thing we understand is that, ultimately the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, our purpose is to destroy Babylon the Great, aka America. And we understand that ultimately leading up to the ultimate destruction of Babylon the Great, aka America, which is going to take place by way of the nuclear destruction, ultimately beforehand, the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai would smite this place with other plagues, you see? So let me open up with the book of Jeremiah, the 28th chapter, and verses 7 and 8. It says, "Nevertheless, hear thou now this word that I speak in thine ears and in the ears of all the people. The prophets that have been before me, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence." You see, and ultimately in today's day and age, as the Lord told Ezekiel in Ezekiel 35th chapter, to prophesy against Mount Seir. Guess what, man? That applies unto us today. As the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, has risen us up and woken us up with the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures. Ultimately, it's been commanded of us by Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai to prophesy against Mount Seir, who is Mount Seir? Edom, right? And ultimately, we're prophesying against America, because ultimately, America is Esau Edom's kingdom. You see? So as we're prophesying against Mount Seir, we're telling you of the evils and the judgments that the Lord is getting ready to bring upon this place for all the wickedness that has been exercised here in America. And ultimately all the wickedness the Esau Edom, the so-called white man, has exercised in the planet Earth. You see, like it says, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war. And that's what we're prophesying about. You see? Because we understand according to scriptures that our World War III is getting ready to come to pass, in which ultimately the end result of World War III is that what ultimately America, Salakia, America is going to be completely destroyed, man. Okay, and it says what? And of evil. What is evil going into? Bad times, and we understand that bad times are coming to America. You can read all throughout the scriptures. All right, you're coming into a time where, ultimately people are going to be fighting one another with the sword. All right, people turning against one another. Right, civil war in the streets. Right, all manners of lawlessness. Right, chaos and anarchy. Ultimately, we're coming into the time of Jacob's trouble. You see, which the scriptures tell us what? It's a time like never before. Right, and it says, and of pestilence. You see, which pestilence goes into this these various different diseases and sicknesses, so on and so forth. You see, so here it is. Ultimately, we have this new CV variant that's on the table, right, which is called Stratus. And I'll skim through the article a little bit before starting this lesson, right? You can't forget that we also have the MB, I think it's called MB 1.1. That variant is still in the air. And I remember not too long ago, it was an article talking about how tuberculosis, right, it is could possibly be the next outbreak, man. You see? So we're in the times where ultimately the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is heavily judging the earth, man. Okay? And these signs and these judgments, man, all right, these judgments are clear signs that what we're very close to the end. This is Matthew chapter 24, and this is our Lord Yahweh Shai speaking in the red letter, verse 7. It says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." You see, so ultimately, when we see information like this, ultimately, we understand that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is only going to turn up, all right, with his judgments and make things much worse for this place, man. You see? So let's go ahead and read into the article. As you can see by the headline, once again, it says XFG Stratus, a CV variant now dominant in U.S. as cases surge. Know these symptoms. It says the new XFG CV variant, aka Stratus, is spreading rapidly in the U.S. as cases rise. Here's what to know about the symptoms of the newly dominant strain. It says CV-19 is still surging in much of the United States as the country faces a late summer wave driven by highly transmissible new variants just in time for back to school season. It says data showcases are on the rise in most U.S. states, predominantly in the West and South, and CV related emergency room visits are up among all age groups. And see, one thing we understand is that ultimately, America has never really healed or recovered from the CV pandemic, man. You see, people are still catching it, man. All right, there's these various different strains, Salakia. There's these various different strains, right, of the demic, okay, erupting. And, ultimately, the scriptures tell us this, right? In the book of Jeremiah, the 51st chapter. And starting at verse 8, it says, Babylon is suddenly falling, which this speaks prophetically to America, right? This Babylon. It says, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How for her? Take balm for her pain. If so, she may be healed, which balm goes into healing ointment, which ultimately you understand that the Lord has made it to where ultimately America cannot be healed. You see? Verse 9, it says, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Excuse me. But she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go everyone into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the sky. So ultimately, Babylon the Great cannot be healed, man. You see? So the reason why I brought that out, because like the beginning of this paragraph said, that CV-19 is still surging in much of the United States. You see, the U.S. never came back from what took place, all right, in late 2019, all right, in early 2020. Moving forward, you see. So once again, Babylon cannot be healed. So we understand that things are just going to get much worse and worse and worse for Babylon the Great, aka America, leading up to the ultimate judgment, right? The knockout punch for this place, which to be what? The nuclear destruction, right? It says the current spike in CV-19 in the U.S. is being fueled by the mutated XFG variant, aka Stratus, which is spreading rapidly worldwide. It says the virus that causes CV, SARS-CoV-2 mutates often, leading to new strains of the virus that are often more transmissible and better at evading immunity than their predecessors. The XFG variant was first detected in January in Southeast Asia and caused surges in India this spring. The earliest cases in the U.S. were reported in March, but it took several months for XFG to take off and surpass the NB181 or Nimbus variant. You see, so ultimately there's these various different pestilences, and diseases out there. You see, so we understand, because ultimately, once again, the times we're coming into is a time like never before. So we're gonna have all these things happening at once, man. You know, the Lord, hey, when the Lord said pestilences, all right, he meant that. You know, there's gonna be multiple, all right, pestilences popping off at once, man. You know, people getting sick off of all this different stuff, man. Off of all these different strains and things of that nature, man. You know, so let's get this in Second Ezra chapter 8 and verse 50. It says, "For many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride, and it's through the judgments that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is bringing a great humbling upon the people." You see, because ultimately a sickness is one way to be brought low. You see, which we understand that, you know, even with all the plagues, you know, that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is ascending upon the planet Earth, man. Hey, these people, man, they're not going to turn from their wickedness, man. Like 2nd Ezra 16 chapter says. So ultimately, we understand that what evils are going to grow more and more and more upon the earth, man. Okay, as the people grow more wicked, man. Hey, the more intense the judgments of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai are going to become, man. You see, so hey, these miseries are going into the various different judgments and plagues that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is going to send upon the planet Earth in these last days. You see, and ultimately the Lord is doing this because also majority of the world is wicked and they've walked in great pride. All right, they completely, all right, disregarded the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. All right, they don't even acknowledge the Lord, right? And ultimately, there is no fear, all right, of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai in the planet Earth as we speak. All right, the only ones that truly fear the Lord are the elect of the nation of Israel, man. You know, Lord's will were of that number. You see, so we understand that through the judgments, all right, the fear of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is going to be reestablished in the planet Earth, man. You see, and like I said, right, because they have walked in great pride. Well, amen. The scriptures say this in Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 11. It says, "The lofty looks of men shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty, and upon everyone that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low." So ultimately, hey man, these people who think, you know, that they the shit, man, you know, who think they don't need the Lord, man. Well, guess what, man? Hey, the Lord is getting ready to bring a great humbling upon this place, man. You see, and through these judgments, man, through these plagues, through these evils, man, all right, these people are getting ready to be brought low. Okay, and ultimately, you understand that in the day of the Lord, all right, when when the Lord lets these nukes fly, all right, these people are going to be completely destroyed, man. You see, so let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 15 and starting at verse 5. It says, "Behold, said the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled." So, hey, that's why, all right, the judgments of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai are going to get intense, all right, as we get closer and closer to the end. See, because ultimately, as the days go by, man, all right, the people, the average person, all right, majority of the people that dwell in the planet Earth, man, they're just waxing worse and worse by the day. You see, hey, people are getting more bold in their wickedness, man, you know, in their pride. You see, so we're at a point now where, you know, ultimately a wickedness is currently at an all-time high. You see, which wickedness being at an all-time high is ultimately setting the stage of the judgments for that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is going to bring, man. You see, it says, verse 7, "Therefore saith the Lord, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness which they profanely commit, neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise." See, because we ultimately, the time is right around the corner where ultimately the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, he's going to make all the correction, all the reproof, right, all the rebuke to cease, man. And ultimately judgments are just going to start going forth, man. You see, that's why the Lord said, what? He will hold his tongue no more as touching their wickedness. Because one thing we understand is that, the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is long suffering. All right, but at a certain point in time, man, hey, enough is enough. And ultimately, we understand that the Lord is already completely fed up with this place. So it's just going to come a point in time where a judgment is going to rain down upon these people, man. And it ain't going to be no kind of let up. It says, behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. And ultimately, that's dealing with us, man. As Ezekiel 9 goes into the men that sigh and cry for the abominations that be done in the midst of the city. You see, hey, man, we're crying day in, day out, all right, through these various different video epistles, man, in the camp listens. All right, we're crying out to the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai for the abominations that are being done in this place. And ultimately, our hope is that the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai destroys this place speedily, man. You see? And also, you also have souls in the heavens, Israelites that are passed on, right? Begging to the Lord to ultimately avenge them, man. But jumping down to verse 49, it says, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. You see, so we understand, all right, one of the things that will take place in these last days, according to Second Ezra, the 16th chapter, will be what? Great death. So, in other words, man, a lot of people are getting ready to die in these last days, man. And that's through the various different plagues and judgments that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is bringing. Which, when we read Ezekiel, the 14th chapter, and verse 19, it says, or if I send a pestilence into that land and pour out my fury upon it in blood to cut off from it man and beast, though Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, as I live, said the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, they shall deliver neither son nor daughter, they shall but deliver their own souls by their righteousness. You see, in which also this chapter goes into the four sword judgments that the Lord is going to send upon the planet Earth, man. With what? Pestilence or these various different diseases being among those four sword judgments, right? So ultimately, once again, one of the ways that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is going to bring about great death, all right, upon the planet Earth in these last days is through the various different diseases, the pestilences, right? Because ultimately, we understand that, hey, man, these sicknesses, Salakia, these sicknesses and these diseases are very fatal, man. You see? So this is a form of judgment that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is going to use to knock people off the face of the planet Earth in these last days. Right? Like verse 20 said, though Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, as I live, said the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, which ultimately Noah, Daniel, and Job in these times represent the elect. It says what? They shall deliver neither son nor daughter, they shall but deliver their own souls by their righteousness. You see, so ultimately the elect, man, our Lord's will of that number, are the elect, man, they're going to be here witnessing all these judgments and all these plagues come to pass. You see? And while all this death is going on around them, hey, man, they're going to be protected by Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And that death is not going to touch them. You see, which ultimately we understand that, of course, in these last days, that there's going to be those who are going to be martyrs for the Lord Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai's sake. All right, but as far as these judgments and things of that nature, ultimately, hey, these things are set up for the wicked. Okay, but this is Psalms, the 91st chapter, and verse 7. It says, 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. So once again, we come into the times where ultimately there's going to be a lot of death taking place in the planet Earth in these last days, man. And ultimately the elect, man, they're going to be protected from that, man. Okay, so let's go back into the article. It says, as of August 9th, XFG is now the dominant variant circulating in the U.S., according to wastewater data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Currently, the level of CV viral activity in wastewater is considered low nationally per the CDC, but at least 11 states are reporting high or very high levels. Hard hit states include Texas, California, and Florida. It says it's unclear when this summer wave will peak. As of August 12th, the CDC estimates that CV infections are still growing or likely growing in 34 states and declining in 0 states, according to forecasting models. You see, so ultimately, hey, it's only gonna get worse, man. Because the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai is not letting up on this place, man. You see, as we get closer and closer, all right, to America's destruction, all right, the Lord is going to turn up the plagues beforehand, man. You see, and then the judgments of the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai, as we've been stating throughout this lesson, all right, they're only going to get more and more and more intense, leading up to the destruction of this place, man. It says, what is this Stratus variant? Which symptoms does it cause? And will CV jump shots protect against it? It says, what is the XFG Stratus variant? On June 25th, the World Health Organization had classified XFG as a variant under monitoring due to its rapid global spread. At that time, XFG had been detected in 38 countries and made up 22% of cases globally. It says XFG is part of a very large Omicron family of variants. Dr. William Schaffner, a professor of infectious diseases at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, tells Today.com. It says XFG is a recombinant or hybrid of 2 existing Omicron strains, LF7 and LP812 per the WHO. You see, which, reading that, it sounds as if, two, all right, pre-existing strains or pre-existing variants were put together. So it could, because we understand, part of Esau using the sword is bio warfare, right? If that's the correct term. So, hey, man, we understand that these various different diseases very well could be man-made. You see, but guess what? We don't give man credit because who's in control of man? The Lord Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai. You see, so from a long time ago, the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai had already declared that we will be seeing pestilences in these last days, man. You see, so at the end of the day, ultimately it's Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai bringing forth these various different diseases. It says, this means XFG has a mixture of genetic material from these 2 variants, which may make it better to able bind to cells in the body and cause infection. Dr. Albert Cole, professor of public health, epidemiology, and medicine at Yale School of Public Health, previously told Today.com. It says MB1.18.1 Nimbus and XFG Stratus appears to be more transmissible compared to other variants, Cole said. It says XFG also has several unique mutations in its spike protein, which have been shown to improve the virus's ability to evade CV-19 antibodies from prior infection or jump shot, per the WHO. Which, I'm going to go ahead and close the article right there. Let me go ahead and get this scripture. That'll be the end of the lesson right there. This is Jeremiah chapter 14 and starting at verse 11. It says, then said the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai unto me, pray not for this people, for their good. And ultimately we understand that this is referring to the wicked of our people, which we understand, according to Zechariah 13:8, that here in the land of America, 2/3 of our people are going to be cut off and die, and only the 1/3 is going to be delivered. You see, so the wicked of our people, man, they're going to die off by way of the various different judgments that the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai is bringing upon the planet Earth, man. Whether it be the pestilences, You know, whether Jake dies to, the fowls of heaven or the beasts of the earth, man. All right, these various different natural disasters that are coming upon the planet Earth, man. Whether Jake gets caught up in these race wars / civil war, whatever the case may be. All right, 2/3 of our people are slated to die here in the land of America. You see, which ultimately, a lot of our people are going to die also by way of that nuclear destruction, man. Verse 12, it says, when they fast, I will not hear their cry, and when they offer burnt offering and an oblation, I will not accept them, but I will consume them by the sword and by the famine and by the pestilence. You see, and these are all the things, all the judgments are coming for you, Jakes, man, in the time of Jacob's trouble. You see, which once again, we understand the time of Jacob's trouble as a time like never before, where ultimately the nation of Israel, all right, Jacob, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, are going to undergo, a time of heavy affliction. You see? So I'm going to close out right there. I pray this lesson was edifying and informative to the body of some sort. And as always, I would like to close out by giving all the praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rechak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and preach the truth and sincerity. Shalom to the hopefully elect. And Lord's, I'll see you in the next lesson. Till then, I say shalom.